There is a rather strange idea that political philosophies are so distinct that they do not interact with each other, but of course they do. That does not mean that they are all the same thing. It does, however, mean that they can swap ideas and practices. Communism and liberalism have a long history of conflict. The Cold War was fought between these two ideologies, but that hides the fact that for an even longer period, including during the Cold War, they have been linked, passing ideas and members back and forth between each other. If you read about different Western personalities in the 20th century, it's not unusual to find them moving between these two ideas. Often a biography will say something like, they had a brief foray into communism but left after a short time, or that they knew prominent communists. It is so common that it goes without comment, but it does demonstrate that these two rivals were not as far apart as they are often portrayed. Both believe in changing the current world, that a better world awaits, that only they are capable of creating that better world, that what they believe is inevitable, and that the end goal is not only to create a new and better world, but a new and better man. They share a radical view of the future. Certainly they have differences, things that they disagree about, but that should not hide the things that they have in common. I've often noticed that former communists keep more of their former beliefs than they might realise. I recently read an article where the author said that there's no such thing as a former communist. I wouldn't go that far, but the idea that we can just discard our old beliefs is harder than we think. But also at work was an attempt by brother communists and liberals to subvert and recruit each other, to bring them to the true faith, which has meant over the past century that the two have exchanged ideas, the two have influenced each other. The interwar years saw the two interact. The post-war world saw communist ideas move into liberalism. Class warfare went from one to the other. The words were changed, but the ideas are the same. Critical race theory was named in the 1980s, but in reality it was a part of liberalism from the 1950s. Race replaced class. The idea that an exploiter class was replaced with the idea of an exploiter race, hence white privilege. The exploited class is the future, just as today we are told that non-whites are the future. These are all communist ideas, but now firmly a part of liberalism. In turn, meeting a real communist is harder and harder because they have been absorbed into liberalism. Meeting someone who believes in the central control of the means of production is not common. Sure, you might meet someone who tells you that they believe in socialism, but then they go on about transgender rights because that is what they are really interested in. In other words, they're interested in liberalism. You also meet people who talk about the revolution, the communist revolution or the liberal revolution. Communism certainly isn't dead, but it ain't in good health either. Liberalism, in turn, now includes much of what was once communism.